Hello everyone, and welcome to NCII's Module 5. The title of today's module is Consequence Strategies to Decrease Behavior. As always, we would like to start our modules with some acknowledgments. Much of the content shared in this module and previous modules was developed by members of the OSEP-funded National Technical Assistance Center for Positive Behavioral Intervention and Supports. So a special thank you to members of our classroom work group, as well as members of the Northeast PBIS network. In the way of an orientation into these modules, what you'll come across in these modules is first, of course, the module video, which you are viewing now. As we work through the module, you'll also work through a workbook, and you'll see a series of associated readings and additional resources. In addition to that, you'll see a series of activities that we call stop and jot activities, as well as some discussion board posting activities. We also have included classroom application activities to answer the question, can you apply the basic content presented in this module to your classroom context? You'll see a module quiz, which is a self-assessment, as well as some embedded coaching activities. Regardless of your role or where you are in your career, we think you can find benefit from this module. If you're a pre-service teacher, we'll look for you to become fluent with the content as well as the basic theory. For you, look for examples of implementation in your clinic placements and consider whether or not you can video record or ask for feedback on your implementation of the key practices and strategies we'll be discussing. If you're an early educator or new teacher, you should focus on moving from knowledge to implementation and practice. Set implementation goals for yourself. Either self-monitor your implementation or ask for feedback from your peer, co-teacher, or coach. When a practice isn't working, use your understanding of theory to help you modify or intensify a practice to improve outcomes for yourself as the educator, as well as for your learners. And finally, if you're an experienced teacher, please use activities as a self-reflection opportunity for yourself. Set a new implementation goal for yourself and consider how you might coach or teach the skills and content to a new teacher who you may be mentoring. Review the resources provided to extend your learning with respect to culturally and contextually relevant implementation. As a review slide, as we do open up each of our modules, a quick look at the DBI model for intensive academic need and how that structure parallels what we're talking about through these 8 social skills and classroom management modules. As you're likely familiar with at this point, the structure for DBI support for intensive academic need begins with identifying students who may have at-risk or high-risk tendencies for academic challenges. Through this process, what we're looking to do is identify an empirically backed, empirically supported structure to support students who are at risk or high risk for academic challenges. Through this process, we implement our Tier 2 support structure, over time identify what might be needed to adapt the intervention support for that student to maximize our gains, and progress monitor to ensure that our supports are appropriately matched to the student's needs. Now, through the behavior modules that you have worked through thus far and will continue to work through in this process, we've begun to identify and highlight 5 critical features of classroom management. We began by identifying how you might look at the established routines and physical structures in your classroom. So we identified how to maximize the structure of your physical learning environment. From there, we talked about another critical feature of classroom management is to identify 3 to 5 positively stated expectations. We then discussed how to teach those expectations in context and reinforce those over time. From there, we discussed how you may appropriately engage and maximize engagement of your learners, before we moved into a conversation where we discussed a continuum of responses to appropriate behaviors. In other words, how to encourage and reinforce students when they exhibit appropriate behavior in your classroom. Through this module, Module 5, we'll be discussing another component of classroom management, which is a continuum of procedures to respond to inappropriate behaviors in your classroom. Comprehensively, when implemented appropriately and with fidelity, we like to conclude that we have a nice foundation and a nice learning environment for students. All learners will benefit from a nice foundation and a nice classroom arrangement in and every day around your school building. As a parallel structure, over time, we can progress monitor in our classrooms to ensure each of these 5 critical features are implemented consistently and with integrity. Very similar to as we do for the academic support for students at risk and at high risk, we can progress monitor ourselves and our own practices in the classroom to identify what supports may need more additional supports and what might be modified. Through this vein, we might again look critically at the 5 areas of classroom management and identify, Can we increase the frequency, the intensity or duration or precision of any one of those supports? Are there particular groups of students that might benefit from particular supports that we are not currently doing? Or are there strategies and practices in place that we do have that we can continue to refine, again, to try to support all learners in our classroom? Over time, we continue to progress monitor, identify and ensure that we are providing a comprehensive, supportive learning environment responding appropriately to all learners' needs. And when we do that well, we have confidence and we can conclude that we have established positive learning structures for all of our learners. When all of these elements are in place with integrity and fidelity over time, and we are confident in that conclusion, we can then bridge the conversation into the DBI model for academic support for learners who may continue and sustain learning challenges. Through this module, by the end of Module 5, we have 2 parts. Part 1 will look to describe consequence strategies to decrease challenging behaviors. As we pivot into Part 2, we'll look at how you establish a continuum of strategies to respond to inappropriate behaviors. We'll look at particular strategies. First, we'll define planned ignoring. Then we'll move the conversation into what is differential reinforcement and how can that be implemented in your classroom. We'll then discuss response cost strategies and approaches, as well as timeout from reinforcement approaches. We'll conclude our conversation in this Module 5 discussing overcorrection procedures.